Hello, I'm Bry Willis, a language philosopher. I published A Language Insufficiency Hypothesis in January 2026, and this is one of a series of videos summarizing the content. In this segment, I'm discussing Chapter 1, A Genealogy of Insufficiency. Let me start with a small reassurance followed immediately by its removal. This chapter is not a history of language, it's a history of disappointment. What I want to show you here is not that philosophers got language wrong, but that language has been quietly failing us for a very long time, and that the people most often cited as its defenders were in fact already circling the problem. This diagram is not a hall of fame. It's a trajectory of shrinking confidence. So if you're looking for progress, closure, or a triumphant theory that finally nails meaning to the floor, you'll be disappointed. Good. Let's begin where all respectable Western stories are required to begin, with ancient Greece. Plato gives us the foundational fantasy. Reality exists, truth exists, language, if handled carefully, can point to it. The problem is not meaning, but ignorance. Shadows on the cave wall and all that. Aristotle tidies these up. Categories, predicates, logical relations, language becomes a filing system for the world. If words misfire, it's because we've mislabeled something, not because the system itself is unstable. Augustine then internalizes the whole affair. Meaning becomes something we possess prior to speech. Words merely transmit what is already there. This is the original promise. Language works, provided the speaker is sincere, rational, and properly trained. That promise never survives contact with reality, but it takes several centuries for anyone to say so out loud. Fast forward to modern Europe, where optimism returns wearing powdered wigs. Leibniz proposes a universal symbolic language, a calculus of reason. Disputes would be solved by calculation, not argument. Gentlemen, he imagines saying, let us compute. This is not naive, it's worse. It's structurally hopeful. Locke, more cautious, admits that words are fuzzy, but still treats them as serviceable tools. If confusion arises, we can always define more carefully, draw sharper boundaries, and tidy things up. The assumption remains intact. Language is basically sufficient, and its failures are accidental. This assumption will not survive the 19th century. Nietzsche detonates the optimism. Truth, he says, is not discovered, it's manufactured. Words are metaphors that are forgotten. They are metaphors. Language does not reveal reality. It stabilizes illusions long enough for societies to function. This is not skepticism. It's a demolition. Meaning is no longer anchored. It's negotiated, enforced, and eventually mistaken for nature. Once you accept this, the question is no longer, is this statement true, but what work is this statement doing? From here on, language is no longer innocent. The 20th century attempts a rescue operation. Saussure reframes language as a system of differences. Meaning arises relationally, not referentially. This is elegant, rigorous, and almost a concession. Gödel then ruins the party. Even formal systems, the ones explicitly designed to avoid ambiguity, turn out to be incomplete. There are truths they cannot prove from within their own structure. This matters far beyond mathematics. It means no sufficiently rich symbolic system can fully account for itself. Shannon arrives next. Stripping meaning out entirely, communication becomes signal transmission, noise is measurable, semantics are somebody else's problem. This is enormously successful and philosophically catastrophic. Wittgenstein finishes the job. Meaning is not in words, it's in use. Language is a set of practices, not a mirror of the world. Barthes shows how these practices harden into myth. Language doesn't just describe reality, it naturalizes ideology. Foucault goes further. Discourses do not merely reflect power, they produce the conditions under which power becomes intelligible. At this point, the idea of a neutral, transparent language is no longer defensible. Language is a technology. It sorts, excludes, legitimizes, and disciplines. The insufficiency is no longer accidental, it is functional. Late 20th century thinkers attempt one final salvage. Cognitive science reframes the issue. Maybe language is limited because cognition is limited. Bounded rationality, conceptual metaphors, linguistic instincts. This sounds humbler. It's not. The optimism persists. If we understand the brain well enough, language will make sense again. But notice the pattern. Each rescue attempt explains why language fails, whilst quietly assuming it should not. This book rejects that assumption. Now we can finally return to the diagram. What you are looking at is not progress, it's a retreat. From stable foundations to games to formal limits to cognitive constraints and finally to horizons we cannot cross. The story is not that thinkers became more confused, it's that they became more honest. Language does not scale with conceptual complexity. It degrades, it fractures, it becomes political, performative, and symbolic long before it becomes precise. This is not a failure to be fixed, it's a condition to be recognized. So chapter 1 does not conclude with a theory. It concludes with a refusal to pretend that clearer definitions, better education, or smarter metaphors will save us from the structural limits of language itself. In the next chapter, we stop pretending that this is merely a philosophical problem and look at what happens when societies are built on words that cannot do the work demanded of them, which is where things get uncomfortable. Anyway, I'm out of time, not out of words. If this was useful, you know what to do. Like, subscribe, share, be notified, ring the bell. It's not your first rodeo. You've got this. If you think I'm off course or on course, let me know in the comments below. This has been another video in a series on a language insufficiency hypothesis. More to follow. Cheers.